Welcome to the Jboy Show, hosted by Jake Crain, the fastest growing sports show in the nation.
I'm Coach Hugh Freeze.
This is Super Bowl champion Brandon Graham.
Hey, this is DJ Shockley, and you're watching.
And thanks for watching the Jboy Show.
What's up, everybody? As usual, thanks for hopping in. Got another great show for you today. Got Mark Anderson, sports reporter for the Las Vegas Review-Journal, and we're talking a lot about the recommendation now, the 12-team playoff recommendation. If you haven't seen it, it's 12 teams, 6 and 6. So you got 6 at-larges, 6 of the conference champs. You automatically get a buy-in. The crazy part is the first 4. So the top 4 ranked conference champs get a bye, and the other 8 teams play the first round game on campus. We're going to talk a little bit about that. We also talk a little bit about the Pac-12 and them throwing the invisibility cloak on from Harry Potter in college football here lately, and them really disappearing as a conference. And a lot of people are asking, how longer will the Pac-12 be relevant? I mean, you look at the AAC and what Mike Orasco's doing over there at the areas they are, the facilities, the success those teams are having. And if the Pac-12 doesn't watch out, they may slip into relegation. And my message to the Pac-12 is this. You either care or you don't. It's very simple. You either care or you don't. And there's nothing wrong with not caring about college football. If you want to swim, all that other stuff, that's great. Underwater paddleball, that's great. Backwards rowing, that's great. But don't complain when your team doesn't make the playoff. Don't complain when you don't have elite teams. Don't complain when all your recruits are going from one coast to the other. It's smart. Larry Scott's gone. I think that was a great move. I say in the interview, I'd rather have Michael Scott than Larry Scott. The new hire that they made as conference commissioner, I don't think it's a bad one. But at the end of the day, it's on the schools. It's on the fan bases. If you can't get anybody to go to the games, or you don't have people really caring, I don't care what your excuse is. You have no right to complain. There is no participation trophies. And if you want to be relevant and be taken seriously and not become a joke, you have to care more. You have to funnel more resources. You can't be making stupid TV deals. You can't treat college football like an appetizer and then be mad when they don't serve you the entree. You can't do that. So for everybody out there that can control this in Pac-12 country, it's on you. For the fans of the Pac-12, it's on you. Don't put it on fans of the SEC or the Big Ten or the ACC. It's on you. And until they start taking responsibility for that and stop thinking you automatically have a seat at the table, you are going to become even more little brotherish. I'll say it again. You can't treat college football like an appetizer and then be mad when they don't give you the entree. And that's my monologue for today. We got a great one for Mark Anderson. Make sure you check out betonline.ag. Head over there today. The online casino is always open. Major League Baseball, NBA playoffs, anything, parlays, teasers, pleasers. They got great sign-up bonuses. They're going to play the Sharps. It's a great book. It's betonline.ag, and they're opening up gambling in some southern states. So go ahead and sign up. Get those sign-up bonuses. There's going to be even better ones. Head over there to betonline.ag today and tell them that Jboy sent you. Let's get Mark Anderson in here, and let's dive into this playoff recommendation. Let's win the water cooler. All right, everybody, let's get to the interview portion of this. Excited to bring a guy with an outside perspective, Mark Anderson, sports reporter for the Las Vegas Review-Journal. And we're going to talk about this new college football playoff format that's been recommended. Now, again, this is a recommendation. This is not set in stone. I'm sure there'll be some fluctuation. Mark, first off, I appreciate you joining us, man. How's it going?
Doing all right. How you doing out there?
Doing great, man. Doing great. Trying to enjoy this weather. It stopped raining for a little bit, so we've been able to stay dry. But, Mark, I want to explain this, and I talked about this in my monologue, but just to go over it again, for the audience, what's being recommended right now. And y'all have heard my 8-team playoff format. I think it's the best way. They should cap it at 8. But what they're saying is you have a 12-team playoff, the 6 highest-ranked conference champs, and 6 at large. The highest 4, so the top 4 seeds out of there, get a bye in the first round. The other 8 play a first-round game on campus. That's probably the part that surprised me the most. Mark. Just your general thoughts on that theory, I guess.
I think that it's part of cutting down on travel, and I don't think it has anything to do with COVID. I think it's more of a financial deal. How often are you asking your fans to travel on short notice to a neutral site? So if you can have your fans stay home for a week, I think that's probably what they're thinking. Especially if you think you got a team that might play, make it a round or two, and so. And I think there's something to be said about earning home field advantage. You have that in the pros, you earn home field advantage in the pros. So I don't know why you can't do that in college too. So I don't really have a big problem with it.
Yeah. What do you think about the 12 number? Because that's the big one that everybody's going to look at. I mean, the sausage making and the minutia of it is one thing. But, I've talked about this. I think 8 doesn't water down the regular season. I think you start getting to 12, and then you have people talking about playing 9-game all-conference regular seasons and stuff like that. Do you worry that the 12 number may water down what is an unbelievable regular season sport in college football?
Yeah, 12 seems like a big number to me, especially when you've been at 4.
Yeah.
I think you're right. If they were already at 8, I think you could kind of make the argument for 12. But to go from 4 to 12, that's a big jump. I'm with you. I think they should, if they're going to expand, I think they should go to 8. Because once you get to, beyond 8, I mean, those teams really don't have a great chance to win the championship anyway. It's not like basketball where, team just kind of gets hot, maybe get a hot shooter or something. It kind of drives you, deep into the tournament. Football doesn't work that way. And so I think if you go to 8, you even at 8, you can make the argument the 7th and 8th teams really aren't realistic championship contenders. But you never know. You get a game where maybe say Alabama's quarterback goes down or something, and the other this suddenly in it. So, but I'm with you. I think 8 makes much more sense.
I agree. It's just I find it interesting that they just jumped to 12. Like you said, it's different going from 2 to 4 to 8 to 10 to 12 as opposed from 4 to 12. And you're exactly right, Mark. I mean, there's only a handful of teams, maybe 6 every year that have, and I may be overplaying it, a legitimate shot. And we all know what Alabama and Clemson and Ohio State and really Georgia have done when it comes to dominating that. And I'm for the expansion to 8. But, when you look at kind of the way that they're setting this up, are they proposing to use the same formula to come up with those rankings? The conference champs, that takes care of itself. That's almost, we have that in other sports. You look at college basketball, you look at college baseball, you win the tournament you're in. But, when you look at that, are they going to use the same formula to decide who the 6 at-larges are? I mean, because that's where you're going to get your most arguments from.
Yeah, that's a good question. They'll have to come up with a committee. I mean, they have a committee now. I mean, that's what they'd have to do. And then do you take the top-rated Group of 5 school? Probably. But then again, what happens if the Power 5 conferences decide they want to kind of take their ball and run with it and not play Group of 5s even in the regular season? Then are you going to have 12 just all Power 5 teams? That's possible.
Yeah.
And I think we're heading that direction. That eventually there's going to be a complete separation. I think obviously you take the 5 conference winners, you give them at least the top. You give them home. The first top seeds. I guess the top 4. I guess was the top 4 get buys?
Yeah, top 4 get buys. Yep.
Okay, so the Pac-12 team would have to play then. So
yeah, that's exactly right. I'm wondering when the AAC is going to be Power 5 and they're going to slip the Pac-12 down into relegation. I guess you could say that's hilarious. We're here with Mark Anderson, sports reporter for the Las Vegas Review-Journal, and Mark. Looking at this, and the reason I thought it should expand is because if you look and listen, the women lie, men lie, the numbers don't lie. Since there has been somewhat of a monopoly, and I'm for not punishing success. I like meritocracy. That's how it should be. But the reason for expansion, to me, to increase parity, helps with recruiting, because we all know how important in today's recruiting world it is to be able to sit down in front of a kid, a mama, a daddy, whatever. They all think their kid's going to the NFL. All the kids think they're going to the NFL. And that film, that tape in those games, in those playoff games, the elite versus elite, are worth their weight in gold to these NFL scouts. Do you see the need for expansion there? Because, again, it has gotten stale. The numbers don't lie. It has gotten stale.
Yeah, I don't know if expanding the playoff field by that much solves the problem, though.
Yeah. Go ahead. I
mean, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and pick whatever your 4th team is, Georgia some years, who else could be? The fourth is kind of a variable.
Yeah.
But those other three schools, I think they're just going to be there. And so if you go to 8, 12, or 16, I think those are still going to be your powerhouses. And I don't see where expanding the field changes that. Maybe you're right in that you could sell it to maybe the second or third best, say, Big Ten school. That, hey, you have a chance to shine against in the playoffs against one of these top seeds, and that could really help you with the NFL. I don't know if that's really a selling point, frankly, but I guess you could make it one.
Well, the reason, and listen, there's no quick fix. I mean, there's not a snap your fingers and all of a sudden, Miami can compete with Alabama. And so at this, there's no quick fix. It's more over time. And the reason I say that, and having been in those rooms, is that the narrative in recruiting has changed. No longer is it, oh, you're from here, you grew up a fan of us, so you're going to come with us. Now it is, are you making the playoff? Are you playing in the biggest games that the scouts can change my grade from a third-round grade to a second-round grade, or a second-round grade to a first-round grade? Because if you look, the teams that are dominating, and they will still have success. I don't think you could put 40 teams in the playoff, and Alabama's going to recruit great. But now these other schools have a chance to go get that big-time offensive lineman, or have a better chance to get that big-time defensive end, because where Alabama beats you, where Clemson beats you, where Ohio State beats you, and Georgia beats you is not at the wide receiver position. It's at the offensive line and the defensive line and the depth there. So that's kind of my thinking. And again, it would be over time, and you're exactly right, Mark. Clemson is going nowhere. Alabama's going nowhere. Georgia's going nowhere. But I think you can kind of chip away and give other teams a better chance to win in the long run. And again, that's the great part about this debate, in my opinion, Mark, is you can look at it from 4 different angles and come up with 4 different logical conclusions.
Yeah, and I'm all for expanding the playoff field. I thought in the beginning 4 was too small. I'm glad they went to the playoffs. It was better than the previous system. So I'm all for going to 8. And I do hope you're right. I hope over time that you do see more, not parity necessarily, but you see more teams with a chance to win. It's becoming, the NBA. What killed the NBA for a long time? It was predictable. You knew in November generally who was playing in the NBA finals, right?
Yep.
So now you could make the same argument with college football. In August, you generally know at least 3 of the 4 teams in the playoff field.
That's all they talk about. That's the narrative, and it gets driven. Those 5 or 6 teams plus one group of 5 team that's the Cinderella of the year. That narrative is going to get driven from August all the way through January. And again, it's not wrong to talk about those guys, but every time when you turn on the college football playoff show and they're talking about the same 4 or 5 teams every time, it almost programs you to think, all right, well, here we go. It's going to be this. And if you're not a part of that fan base, then you're kind of just left there. And unless you just have an unbelievable love for college football, kind of holding the bag. Now, again, not punishing success. You're not stopping Nick Saban, but I think in the long run, it'll have some help. And speaking about in the long run, if you're trying to turn your child, friend, if you're the prospect, your career from just a high school career to a college career, whether that's walk-on, scholarship, you need to download the Dynasty U app today. It's on Google Play, anywhere you get your apps. It's a LinkedIn for recruits. Everything you need in one place, the GPA, highlights, anything you want to put in there, it's consolidated, it's concise, and the college coaches love it a whole heck of a lot more than opening up that email and having 20 emails from one person about their kid. It'll go further in the long run for you, your child, or whoever, and it helps the college coaches. That's Dynasty U. Go download that today. We're here with Mark Anderson, talking some playoff, going to move to the national championship game. He's a sports reporter for the Las Vegas Review-Journal. And going into this year, and speaking about narratives, the same teams we're about to talk about are the ones that usually get talked about. But been a lot of calls about Georgia having a really good chance to win this year. I've said, I think right now, looking at their roster, I've got them winning the national championship. They got a big game against Clemson in the opener. Do you see a team, Mark, outside of the SEC that has a legitimate chance to knock off what would be an Alabama or a Georgia?
I mean, besides like an Ohio State?
Yeah, I mean, Ohio State, Oklahoma. Is there anybody kind of, let's say, not unknown, but you think could sneak up there? Is Notre Dame going to make the play? Are we going to have to go through this again, Mark?
Yeah, Notre Dame. Yeah, they have these seasons, right? Every once in a while that they win like 12 games, and then they get to the playoffs and like, oh yeah, that's right. They're still not quite up there. So
yeah,
that's a good question. I know, even though I'm a Florida grad, believe it or not, I'm from Tallahassee.
Mm-hmm.
So I know there's some renewed excitement in Tallahassee these days over Florida State. I don't think they're quite there yet. I think they still have a ways to go. The ACC. I mean, who besides Clemson? Yeah. I don't see a team besides Clemson in the ACC. The Big Ten outside Ohio State, Michigan, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Harbaugh better hope so.
I mean, Northwestern has had a good program. They're not at that level.
Wisconsin, I mean, dude, does a team, can you see a Wisconsin? I mean, again, last year they couldn't throw it from me to you. They're the Kentucky of the Big Ten, but, they're always there. And I say that, Mark, because, when I look around, and this is me segueing to the Pac-12, you're out there obviously in Vegas. And when I asked about this, the Pac-12 is slowly disappearing. I mean, you look at USC, I mean, they're a shadow of themselves. UCLA, not relevant. I think LSU is going to go out there and pull their pants down. How bad is it at the Pac-12? I mean, I always say I'd rather have Michael Scott running my conference than Larry Scott, and it's a disaster right now. What is there a fix? I mean, kind of what's your view on the Pac-12 from a guy that's a lot closer out there than what we are here?
Well, what's interesting, they just hired a new commissioner, George Kliavkoff, from Las Vegas. He was one of the big honchos here at the MGM. He helped Las Vegas get some big events, NCAA events. We're getting a basketball regional in 2023, a Final Four in hockey in 2026. So he helped plan those events. He owned, until they got sold, the WNBA Aces, helped bring them here. So he's heavily involved in this stuff, and so it'll be interesting to see. I think his big priority right now is to get a better TV deal. Yeah. And so if he can do that, then you could make the argument that will funnel down to the schools, and they can put more money into facilities and recruiting and that sort of thing. So that's probably more of a long-term play. That's not a quick fix, because I don't know how much power commissioners really have as far as individual programs go. Mm-hmm. I think it's pretty limited. I mean, he can't snap his fingers and suddenly USC's back to USC under Pete Carroll. Yep. That's just not going to happen. So I think it's up to each school. Now we've seen Oregon get hot. They'll go out and be, win 10, 11 games. I'm talking about recent Oregon teams, not the 10 years ago. So I would never completely count them out. And USC is still USC. They still will get, if they, you have to make the argument whether Clay Helton is the right coach. He hasn't really done. I like him a lot personally, but he hasn't done what you expect at USC. So I would think at USC is going to make a change at some point. And of any program in the Pac-12, including Oregon, USC has the most upside. So they could get back pretty quickly if they get the right person in charge. And he's recruited well. I mean, he's gotten top quarterbacks pretty much every year. So that hasn't been the problem. And they'll win 7, 8, 9 games, but they're not nationally relevant. And winning 7, 8, 9 games is not what USA expects. But they do have the ability to get to that 12, 13 win season like they used to on a regular basis. So it won't happen this season. But if you're asking, going back to your question about who can maybe compete and be surprised, you never know. Maybe an Oregon can get hot and do something and argue its way into the Final Four. But that's I think the Pac-12 has such a negative mark against it right now that it would take an extraordinary effort to do that.
Yeah, and again, for fans of the Pac-12, the diehards, because they're diehard fans. I mean, I've had Frosty Rucker on here and guys going on saying, we love it just as much as y'all love it down there. It's just there's a lot more of y'all that love it than out there. And again, I'm all for it. I mean, listen, I cover the SEC. Love the SEC, but I'm a college football purist, man. I know it's good for college football, for Michigan to be good, for Wisconsin to be good, for USC, Oregon. I love what Herm Edwards is doing at Arizona State. Talk about a team that's kind of flipped it. And when he got hired there, I thought that was a very interesting hire. Typically, that doesn't really work out well when you funnel down like that. But I'm interested to see that. But Mark, this is great stuff, man. We got to get you back on, especially as these playoff recommendations keep coming out. But tell everybody where they can find you on social media and where they can find your content.
I'm on Twitter at MarkAnderson65, and you can go to reviewjournal.com to find my stories. And I got a big story coming out probably this weekend about the future of college athletics, in particular college football, and how it might change pretty quickly.
Yeah, well, definitely everybody will be heads up for that. I can't wait to read it, Mark. I really appreciate it, buddy. Stay safe out there in those neck of the woods, man. And we appreciate you guys joining us as well. Subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Head to thejboyshow.com and grab some merch. Got some big stuff coming, big announcements coming. Another good one today. Retweet everything. Follow us, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. It's The Jboy Show for another edition of The Jboy Show with Mark Anderson taking a trip out to Vegas. We're going, gone.
The Jboy Show is produced by David Cohn, Technical Director Dave Hammock, Creative Director David Culbertson, Audio Engineer Feyzan Shareef, Production Assistants Blaine Crain and Kyle Orr, Executive Producers Jake Crain, Vince Thompson, Steve Chamberlain, and David Cohn. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and visit our website, thejboyshow.com, for updates regarding our newest apparel and merch designs. Win the water cooler with The Jboy Show.